Hey Walrus Squad, today we're going over Wraith and how to use her abilities in Apex Legends Season 7 to get more wins for you and your team. Let's go right now. Now, of course, just like all the other characters in Apex, Wraith has a unique set of abilities. Here they are on the screen if you need to read through the definitions of each of them. But Wraith is one of the original characters in Apex and one of the all-around best characters, as many of the originals are. And no discussion about any character is complete unless we first start with her hitbox size. And Wraith has a total hitbox size of 95,997 pixels, which is the smallest hitbox in the game in terms of the total number of pixels. If you look at this image here, you can see that she beats Bangalore by about 10,000 pixels in size. So there's a significant difference between her and the second smallest hitbox size in the game, which obviously it turns into a huge advantage for you. And being such a small target while also having useful abilities makes Wraith a great character to use for solo queue players and full party players alike. And this is pretty true for most of the original Apex characters as well. And Wraith does have a low profile perk that makes her even more difficult to hit, but does add 5% to incoming damage in order to counteract her extremely small hitbox size. And overall, Wraith can be one of the best characters in the game, but her learning curve is steep for new and experienced players alike. You often have to plan ahead in order to make the best of her abilities, and just a moment of hesitation can make the difference between your team surviving and going down. So let's talk about her abilities and share some tips on how to make the most of them for Season 7. Wraith's passive ability is called Voices from the Void, and the game describes it as you hear a voice when danger approaches. As far as you can tell, it's on your side. With this ability, you'll get an audio warning when an enemy is targeting you, and you'll get a prompt on your screen that lets you warn your teammates as well. And the nice thing about this passive ability is the enemy doesn't have to actually shoot at you in order for it to activate. A good tip to remember with this passive is to warn your teammates every time, either through the voice chat or the ping system in the game. I'm sure you've realized in Apex that some players don't like to communicate a lot in the game, but it's easy to warn your teammates that another team is nearby with your passive, especially if they aren't aware of it. Small communication strategies like this can really make the difference for your team's survival in the long run. Another tip to remember is that Wraith's passive ability will let you know the type of danger, whether it be an enemy or traps from Caustic or Watson. So just make sure you pay attention to the audio cue because it will actually tell you whether it's traps or an enemy. And moving on, let's talk about Wraith's tactical ability called Into the Void. And the game's description of the ability is reposition quickly through the safety of the void space, avoiding all damage. And this ability can have several awesome uses, so let's go over how you can use it most efficiently. Recently, Wraith has gone through a lot of changes because of how dominant she has been in Apex, at least according to the developers. Her signature Naruto run was recently changed to a more upright and normal running animation, and her tactical has been nerfed in recent months as well, starting with a delay of 1.25 seconds before the void ability takes effect. So the first tip with her tactical is because of the time delays with this ability, it's important to plan ahead. The 1.25 second delay means you can't instantly save yourself when you're in immediate danger like you used to. If you're attempting to phase because you are low on health in the middle of a fight, always start your phase a split second earlier than you think necessary. And this is really important because too many times I've noticed players will phase to get out of trouble but then go down because they don't account enough time for the delay. So always figure in that delay time when planning your escape or when attempting an aggressive push. And honestly, that's part of one of the original points that we brought up with having to think ahead when playing Wraith and how difficult that can be. Another tip also is to remember the wind down time after you exit the void. You cannot act during this brief delay, so it's important to think about your exact position, especially if you're trying to escape danger. You'll probably find that you need to provide yourself with a little extra cover for a slightly longer time until Wraith is able to pull up her weapon after exiting the phase. This is especially important when you think an enemy might be chasing you while you are phased. If you find that that's the case, then do as much as you can to put just a little extra distance between you and the enemy before you come out of the void ready for the fight. Just trying to create that split second extra of more distance between you and the enemy can make all the difference. Another tip is to watch for the silhouettes of enemies while in the void. This is a somewhat newer change to Wraith's tactical because before, all the other characters were invisible while you were were phased, so it was impossible to know if you're running straight into another bad guy until your phase ended. But now that you can actually see the enemies while you're phased, it's just an added bonus really. And remember that you can avoid all damage for 3 seconds while you are phased, so if you happen to get stuck by an arc star, then use it. Perhaps you need to use it in order to run through a wall of thermites thrown your way, or you just needed to save those few extra seconds to avoid ring damage if you're running into the circle. And if you find yourself near lava on World's Edge, use it to avoid lava damage if necessary, whether you need to escape a fight or flank an enemy squad. Because depending on the location, you could actually phase into the lava to flank the enemy from behind to go around a rock or whatever the case might be. It depends on your location, but sometimes phasing into the lava will be one of the last things that the enemy might suspect. So do keep that in mind if you're in a tight area with lava around you. The big thing is to not think of your phase as merely an option to avoid gunfire. Its usefulness extends to all other types of damage like we just discussed. And another tip with Wraith's Tactical is remember that the activation delays are removed if you phase while setting a portal with your ultimate ability, which honestly is good to know if you're attempting to save a teammate or portaling through a heavily populated area. All that means for you is you don't have to plan quite as far ahead before using your phase to avoid damage. Because there is no delay at all while setting a portal, it just makes it that much easier for you to avoid damage. But speaking of portaling, let's talk about Wraith's ultimate and how it can be used with either an offensive or a defensive strategy in mind. I'll explain. Wraith's ultimate ability is called Dimensional Rift, and the game's description for it is link 2 locations with portals for 60 seconds. Wraith's ultimate is one of the most useful abilities in the game, but it's also one with the steepest learning curve. It's difficult to realize exactly when and where you need to use it, but here are a few strategies that will be fairly easy for you to master. If you get really good at these, I promise that you'll have a very strong foundation when it comes to using Wraith and helping out your squad with her ultimate ability. Let's talk about a good defensive strategy first, and that is to use your portal to help your downed teammates escape to safety so you can revive them. This requires very quick thinking to pull off correctly, but when your teammates are down and you don't see a clear way for you to revive them, set a portal in an inconspicuous area and set the exit portal a somewhat safe distance away. Remember that there might not be much time before the enemy decides to come and finish your downed teammates, so try not to waste a lot of time here. Have your teammates enter the portal and be ready to revive them as soon as they exit at the safe location. But be aware that the enemy might recognize this strategy because it is somewhat common, so pay attention and listen for a bad guy coming through the portal, because there actually is an audio cue when someone is using your portal. You'll be able to hear it fairly easily if you're somewhat close. If that's the case, you'll have to stop the revive animation and start fighting. More often than not though, you'll probably realize that not all enemies will be brave enough to enter the portal, but definitely be listening for the audio cues in case they do. Oftentimes it's not smart for them to take a portal because they don't know where it leads and they don't know what's on the other side waiting for them. So most of the time, most players, I don't think you're going to see them go through the portal too often. Another tip is to use your portal to help your teammates and yourself cover extra ground quickly. This is especially helpful when you and your team are having to beat the incoming ring. Since Wraith runs faster while setting portals, your teammates will cover that distance a little faster than if they were to run on their own. This type of strategy is also good to use when your teammates are still looting, but you have finished and want to move on. Or it can provide a way of escape for a teammate who is being respawned in a hot zone. If that's the case, then set your portal for them to catch up to your location safely right after you start the respawn. Wraith's ultimate can also be extremely useful as an offensive tool as well by allowing you and your squad to reposition and push on enemy teams faster than just running. For example, if you want to get aggressive in the end game, run your portal down closer to where an enemy team is to allow you and your teammates to get into a fighting position with the ability to retreat quickly if necessary. This is an especially aggressive tactic when you are in a situation where the enemy team is below you, either in a building, beneath a bridge, or down a hill, and you want to get some shots in on them without waiting around for someone to make a move. Remember though that everybody can hear you drop your exit portal, so you might want to place it far enough away so they don't see it or hear you coming down. And that's what I love about Wraith's ultimate ability, is it's great for defense, but it can also be used as an offensive strategy like we just described as well. And now here's some big time tips and tricks for when using Wraith in Apex Season 7 to make you a better player. Let's go. Get in the habit of planning ahead with Wraith's abilities. This is what makes Wraith a more difficult character to master, but always make sure to account for the input delays from your tactical ability, and think about the best spots to place your portals. Keeping them hidden as best as you can is important, but you also have to make sure that they're close enough for you to reach them, especially if you're playing aggressive and you need to retreat back to heal. Trying to think one step ahead is so important with Wraith, so try to focus on your plan of escape during fights and be aware of your teammates' positions at the same time so that you can best help them with your portals. Because what's good for your teammates is ultimately good for you. Think of Wraith's abilities both offensively and defensively. While both your phase and your portals provide a great way of escape, they also provide offensive strategies that can allow you to flank another team quickly, especially when they are already vulnerable. And your portals provide a great mix of both, so don't be afraid to get after it. And of course, I encourage you to be aggressive with Wraith. Her small hitbox size and increased movement speed while setting portals can combine to make you extremely difficult to hit in high-stress situations, and your quick escape capability is even more of a reason to take advantage of that small hitbox size. If you want to come chat with us off of YouTube, then join the Walrus Squad Discord channel in the link down below. Everybody is welcome, and we have such a solid community of friends there. I know you're going to enjoy it, so be sure to join us in our Discord channel. I look forward to chatting with you guys there, and thanks for watching. And as always, I will see you in the next video.